start decks for Overdress were released back in May of 2021 and were followed by set 1 merely a week later. Since then, we have received quite a few more sets. And with the Overdress anime having aired its final episode and the DivineZ era looming over the horizon, we thought it would be appropriate to look back at all the units we have received. Doing every nation in one video would make for quite a lengthy video, so we're going to break it up into the 6 main nations and then do all the extras in one last video. In today's entry, we are going to discuss the nation of Brandt Gate. We will start this list similarly to the previous installments with the start deck. Brandt Gate start decks features the Prison mechanic and Seraph Snow, a grade 3 unit that could gain power and drive if you were to imprison 3 or more units. It could also imprison 2 units on board for a single CB. While the idea of removal sounds good, your opponent is able to take the cards out of prison if they are able to afford bail. For a Soul Blast, your opponent can call out a unit, and for a CB, they can call out 2. This deck has a myriad of support ranging from control options to restanders. Then, we received a grade 4 Seraph who provided this deck with a crazy ability. You could now steal 2 cards from board, hand, and soul, meaning you could steal 6 units in one go. That alone is very strong, but alongside that, Pure Light also gave your front row plus 5k for every 2 cards imprisoned. Then, if you had 10 cards imprisoned, your front row would gain a critical. This deck recently received a promo that allows you to search your deck, hand or drop for her, and write her on Vanguard, mitigating some of her costs. We've also received a large amount of units that can imprison from places other than board. However, if you are expecting a third form similar to Nirvana or Bruce, you will be disappointed to know that Prison is the only one of the 5 start decks that has not received a third form. Nonetheless, the Prison deck is strong, and it can definitely hold its ground, but let's move on to the second Brandt Gate deck, Orphist. Orphist received 3 forms in Overdress. The first is the original Orphist, who introduced us to the Dark Knight and Abyssal Dark Knight mechanic. This was a state in which you entered depending on the number of world cards in your order zone. If you had 1, then you entered Dark Knight, and if you had 2 or more, you entered Abyssal Dark Knight. The original Orphist would gain plus 5k if you were in either Knight. And then, if you were an Abyssal Knight, you can Counterblast 1 to create 3 Shadow Army tokens. These tokens were 15k base and could boost as well as attack. We received several cards that cared about either the Knight or Shadow Army tokens. We even received a restander that would use up your Shadow Army tokens to facilitate its abilities. The deck was decent in its beginnings, but very quickly fell off in the face of the intense aggro. Then we received his new form, Orphist Regis. This unit allowed you to play World card for free when it's placed on Vanguard Circle, and could create a Shadow Army token for every 2 world cards when you controlled when it attacked. This opened the deck up to pumping out 5 attacks consistently and allows you to keep your Shadow Army tokens around. This deck even came in second at the 2022 World Championship, so it was pretty strong. And then we received his Mask form. You could now put a total of 4 world cards in your order zone on your first grade 3 turn. However, unlike Orphist Regis, Orphist Mask would get rid of your world cards to make tokens. This was a 1-for-1 trade, so for every world card, you would get to create a Shadow Army token. If you created at least 2 with this ability, you would gain an extra drive. This deck was also able to compete at the regional level, but the biggest drawback of this deck has persisted throughout all its forms. You are incredibly susceptible to Dorish decks. Having to play a minimum of 6 world cards and at least 6 grade 3 units meant that nearly 4th of your deck had no shield value. I still believe this deck is incredibly strong, but maybe some added shield would help it win a bit more consistently. Moving on from Orphist, we have another unit that received a mass form in Gravidia Nordlinger. Gravidia uses Meteorite cards to create soul and draw cards. She's able to place 2 meteors from the deck when she is placed on Vanguard, and when she attacks, you can remove any number of meteorites from your order zone to gain effects. For a single meteor, she gains plus 15k. For 3 meteors, she gains a crit, and for 5, your trigger activate twice. This deck is incredibly high roll. If your opponent is unable to get a PG quickly, they could easily die during your first grade 3 attack as long as you reveal a critical, or 2. However, the deck is locked to 3 attacks and relies on the luck of the drive check for its wins mostly. So, did the Mask form solve this issue? Sort of. Nordlinger Mask allows you to retrieve 3 meteors from drop to hand. I don't know why they didn't make it so that she would put it into order zone so that you could draw cards, but I honestly don't know. Nonetheless, when she attacked, you could remove meteors similar to the original, but now you're able to call a unit for every 2 you remove, giving the deck access to 5 attacks but removing the pressure from the Vanguard. If you removed at least 4 meteors, she gained her double trigger effect, but this is slightly less intimidating when you don't have power or crit. So I wholeheartedly believe the original form is better, but I am open to it receiving some form of love in either form. Next we have the Brandt Gate glitter deck, Ava. A deck that came out incredibly incomplete, but there's almost no sign of the original lackluster form. Ava uses research orders to help you filter cards from your deck. She even had access to a 4th attack right away. The main drawback in the beginning was that you only had one choice for research orders. This held back her aggro by not allowing Obfuscate to gain its crit when you called on your first grade 3 turn. This was solved by her first promo, a grade 1 research order that both protected your Obfuscates and provided soul and countercharging. The simple addition of a grade 1 order bumped this up many tiers. Then following that promo, we received a second Obfuscate target and a grade 3 research order. The deck has now taken shape, and then we received a new form of Ava. This form would search you a research order and didn't require CB or soul to call the Obfuscate, as well as being able to call from either deck, hand, or drop. Ava is a strong deck that will most likely receive more love as we move into the DivineZ era, but now let's discuss another user of the research order, Archetype. Researcher similar to Ava, but her specialization is monsters. Archetype has her own research order that allows you to dig for monster units and add one to hand and the other to order zone. She does this to provide your monsters with power, and similar to Ava, she has access to a 4th attack. She has recently received a new promo monster that allows for some added recursion. The deck does need some more love to compete with, but with any monster unit being indirect support, it's always changing. Next up, the B Heroes and their leader Unite Dianos. This deck has received support in the latest set as well as a new promo. Unite Dianos gives your front row B Heroes plus 5k and can gain plus 15k, and he also gains a crit if you control 3 bases. So you might be asking, what is a base? Hero Base Aegis is a grade 2 set order that allows you to check top 7 for up to 3 B Heroes and add 1 to hand and scout the other 2. Scouted heroes can be used to guard or called to rear guard for varying cost. The deck has access to 8 attacks, but the major issue is the power. A defensive trigger makes your attacks easily guardable. The deck could use a new base card that provides added power or a new form of Unite Dianos, but following the B Heroes of Justice, we have big business. The CEO of the Blitz industry, Welstra. The deck relies on its products to dominate the battlefield. Welstra is able to operate a product when it attacks and gain plus 5k each time a product is operated. When this deck first dropped, we had 3 products available, the biggest being Freischutz Maximum, a grade 3 product that allows you to retire an opponent's rearguard, and then you can neg 5 your opponent's vanguard. That alone is very strong, but you could also counterblast 1, bounce a rearguard to your hand, and call it to rearguard as a 23k unit. This gave the deck access to 4 attacks. The biggest drawback is that this product can't be played like other orders. You would have to place it in the order zone through the effects of your other units / products. That was until Welstra received Freiheit, a grade 2 unit that lets you search for Persona Right and put products into your order zone if your vanguard was Welstra. He was also a battle phase operator, which allowed for a 5th attack. We received 2 new products as well, which pushed the previous products out. The crushing grip of the free market is being dominated by Welstra. Nonetheless, let's now talk about the Brandt Gate encounter deck, Messiah. This deck introduced lockback to the game, and by locking and unlocking, you gain access to 5 attacks. Also, being able to draw cards when a unit is unlocked allows you to maintain a healthy hand size. The deck has competed very well and has shown to be a strong contender, but currently is falling behind against some of the other decks. Following that, we have the Youthquake deck, Silhouette. It uses armed arms to unleash incredibly large numbers. The deck currently only has 2 options for armed arms, that being the left arm and the right arm, which can draw cards or retire an opponent's rearguard. Silhouette also has access to 4 attacks. It is also the ace unit of the protagonist from the Youthquake manga, so it is very likely that it will receive support alongside the manga. Personally, it is a very fun deck, and I believe I am keeping up with the manga. I believe the next armed arms we will receive is a drill or a saw. They haven't really shown it too well, so it's kind of hard to tell, but it did look like some sort of tool, which it's always cool to look forward to that. But with that, we are in the final stretch here, only 3 more units. Next up is Avant-Garde, the mech boss that uses strategy orders to execute its plays. This deck can restand if it hits or if you Persona Right. With 3 different strategies, you have access to guard restriction, retirement, and even front row power increases. This was good enough, but Avant-Garde received a new form that gives the deck access to 5 attacks. The new form can copy the abilities of the original Avant-Garde, so it can restand as well, and then allows you to ride into the old Avant-Garde to perform 1 final attack. Moving on from this, we have 2 of the less well-known units, Elid Glima and Ele Hiresaid. The first is a restanding Vanguard that requires you to return set orders from your deck to restand a unit. If you return 3 orders, you can restand a rearguard, and if you return 5 orders, you can restand Elid Glima, but it loses all drive and gains plus 10k. There's not really any direct support for this unit, but hey, the future is bright, promos can always come out, although I wish they were in the main set. Sometimes you can just prey on promos for decks like this. And then we have the final unit, Sayed. Hard name to say. This unit, unlike Elid Glima, has received a pseudo-direct support unit. Shellrockpede is a grade 1 that gains power if your Vanguard's original power is 15k or greater, which Sayed is a 15k base that says it can't attack unless your order zone has a set order. This doesn't really mean the deck has any real viability, but hey, at least it's got a card, right? But with that, we have concluded all the units that released during the Overdress era. Thank you all for tagging along. Have a great day.